The two of them entered the house, and Michael invited Justine to sit by the fireplace to talk. Justine hesitated for a moment. It had been a long time since she had spoken comfortably with a man. He was incredibly attractive, yet he seemed entirely unaware of it, completely devoid of vanity. The conversation flowed naturally, and they chatted for a long time about the landscape, the wool, the sheep. She surprised herself, seeing how spontaneously she opened up to this man as if she had known him her whole life. At no point had she felt any discomfort, only the peace that emanated from him. No furtive glances, no hidden agendas, no seductive dalliances, no forced displays on his part, and none of the pressure of the game of hunter and prey. Despite his evident power, he was a simple, salt-of-the-earth man who only enjoyed sharing his food with her. He had served some cheese and hot chocolate for the two of them on the small table in front of the hearth. "Do you live here alone?" she asked. "No, I live with my dog, my sheep, and all the birds that pass through here when they migrate," he replied with a laugh. In that moment, Justine fervently wished to know this man more deeply and to become his friend. She felt so at ease, so safe. It seemed strange to her. Someone trustworthy with whom she could simply open up and communicate without issue was a rare thing indeed. He suddenly grew serious and said, "Fiona has told me a great deal about you. I was curious to meet you. She believes in you very much. Although she hasn't been able to tell you much, she knows you are strong." Justine interrupted with a laugh. "Well, I only came to pick up the wool, and the way back isn't that long." Michael added, "She sent you to me for more than just wool. You see, Fiona and I are not exactly what we seem. Now, without knowing it, you are part of something greater, and I don't think you can understand it so easily. But you must trust Fiona and me, no matter what happens." "What are you talking about?" Justine countered. "I don't understand anything." "What do you mean by that?" Justine remembered that moment in the morning, when she had found only a body of light where Fiona had stood the night before. "I think I'm going crazy," she said. "Not at all. Everything is fine. But you must see it for yourself. Take my hand." Looking into his eyes, Justine took the hand Michael offered. In that instant, as she felt the warm embrace and tenderness of Michael's hand, she was momentarily blinded and heard. "Follow the path," Michael's voice said like a distant echo. When her vision returned, Justine was standing beside a tower that rose infinitely toward the heavens. It was night. It was pouring rain, and only flashes of lightning illuminated the firmament. It was cold. The starless sky was nothing but a black shroud. "What am I doing here? Where am I? What is this?" "Michael!" she shouted. She looked around but found no one. The tower, a massive stone brick structure without windows, stood powerful and unreachable. She tried to enter by circling it, but there was no door. Only narrow stone steps wound around the tower like a snail's shell. Far above, a faint light could be glimpsed. She understood that to enter that fortress, she would have to climb that infinite spiraling staircase. She placed a foot on the first step, where water and mud had gathered, and began to climb. The rain was so heavy, and the wind lashed so fiercely that she could barely open her eyes, and she struggled to breathe as water entered her nose. Blinded and gasping, she took in gulps of air through her mouth. She covered her chest as best she could, but the water had soaked her body in seconds. She climbed and climbed. The lightning terrified her as the staircase, which coiled around the tower like a serpent, grew narrower and narrower. She couldn't believe what was happening to her. She wept in bewilderment. Her only choice was to ascend that interminable tower. The cold robbed her of mobility. She tried to go faster, but felt she was making no progress. That tower was inexorable. After a while, she had climbed such a distance that vertigo seized her, and she avoided looking into the abyss, pressing herself against the cold, damp brick wall. She almost crawled, clinging to the structure. The cold had numbed her hands and her body, which moved only by the sheer force of her will. Her clothes dragged at her with the weight of the water, and she felt them clinging to her skin, freezing as the wind chilled the water further. Her body temperature dropped lower and lower with the icy cold of the altitude. She had lost track of how much time had passed climbing that cursed staircase, but her instinct forbade her from stopping. She had to reach the top at any cost. "If I slip and fall, I will die. I can only keep climbing." Weeping, and with the absolute certainty that she would die there, she saw the first light appearing in a tiny porthole that opened in the stone structure. "I have to hold on," she thought. "I am close, and I must know what is happening here." She kept her eyes on the ground, step by step, stair by stair, continuing to circle that impregnable bastion until, to her surprise, she set foot on the final step. She looked up, and there, almost in the middle of the celestial vault, having left the clouds far below, the moon appeared like a beacon in the midst of that immense darkness. To her left was a great wooden portal, decorated with old shapes carved into the slats. She kept her eyes on the ground, step by step, stair by stair, continuing to circle that impregnable bastion until, to her surprise, she set foot on the final step. She looked up, and there, almost in the middle of the celestial vault, having left the clouds far below, the moon appeared like a beacon in the midst of that immense darkness. To her left was a great wooden portal, decorated with old shapes carved into the slats. She groaned as she strained to open the door, and the wood gave way. Before her opened the path to a grand gallery with high ceilings, flanked by columns and sculptures. The symbols carved into the bluish ivory felt like velvet. The jewels embedded in those sculptures sparkled as they caught the beams of moonlight filtering through the great glass windows. Justine scanned the details of that majestic nave in awe and walked straight toward what looked like a great circle at the end of the hall. She lifted her gaze and said, "Justine, you made it," and smiled languidly. "Fiona?" Justine replied, frightened. She did not recognize this woman physically, but her voice was identical to that of the old woman. "Is it you?"